It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show for Friday, December 6th. This is C Block. For those of you who are not listening live, we do the show every single day, 7 to 8 o'clock at Central Standard Time. It is broadcast live on 104.5. We used to call it Egbert, but Egbert has taken a backseat. Now it's called Westplex Talk. You can check out westplextalk.com, and it's also streamed live as well. John, you've heard this guy before, right?
I have. I remember him last year, and I remember you and Shelley talking to him in previous years, too.
Right. Let's give him a call. Let's see what he says. This is, hopefully I'll be able to get him. This is Jack Frost. Hold on a minute. Is this Jack Frost?
The one and only. How are you?
Okay, I have to ask you a question right off the bat.
Okay.
In years previous, when we've called you, it's been very, very, very warm, and I know you've not been happy with that, correct?
That is correct. You've often been amazed that Middle America is cold in December, which is shocking to me. But yes, your point is taken.
So you must be one happy camper right now, then, correct?
I'm one happy camper right now. And then did you see last weekend when I brought snow? Any Joe Schmo can do, a white Christmas. But what about a white November 30th?
Yes, it did snow last week. This is Jack Frost, the infamous Jack Frost. I don't know if that feedback's that. Is that on my end or your end, Jack?
That is on my end. Who knows? I think the elves are trying to do a toy delivery. Be quiet, you elves.
Okay.
There we are.
Jack Frost is involved with Christmas traditions, and he's done this for how many years have you been a part of Christmas traditions, Jack?
This will be my 19th year.
Wow. And the other interesting thing is the Christmas traditions on Main Street in St. Charles has turned the big 5-0 this year.
That's right. Half a century of Yuletide memories here on historic Main Street. Time flies.
Now, give everybody, for those of you who've never heard about this or never involved, give us what goes on. Give us the weekend schedule for this weekend.
Yes, so St. Charles Christmas Traditions will take place Friday through Sunday. So it is 6 p.m. to 8:30 on Friday, noon to 8:30 on Saturday, and noon to 5 p.m. on Sunday, all along historic South Main Street. And we're going to have over 50 different legendary Christmas characters. We're going to have roasted chestnuts. We're going to have singers, all kinds of activities completely free for the family to enjoy.
Now, this year, because of the fact that Christmas falls in the middle of the week, it's on a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to be doing the weekend thing for the next several weekends, but then you're doing a special appearance on Christmas Eve, which I believe is on a Tuesday. Is that correct?
That's right. It is on Tuesday, December 24th. Even Santa will be here. That's a pretty big day for the big guy, but he loves St. Charles so much. He wants to do his special appearance there on Christmas Eve. We'll have a big pep rally send-off for him and Mrs. Claus. And then, since it is our 50th anniversary, everything will close with the burial of a time capsule underneath the Christmas tree that will be opened on opening day of Christmas Traditions 100th season in 2074. And you'll be there for that, Brad.
Well, I won't be, but I want to ask you about this because Santa Claus is one of these guys that never ages. Is that the same thing with Jack Frost? You really like 6,000 years old or something like that?
Ugh. Well, wait till just throw me under the sleigh there, Brad. Goodness gracious. A legend never ages, but I think between you and me, I think I kind of turned out a little bit better than old Santa Claus there.
So you're not going to give your age? You're like a woman who never gives their age?
That's exactly it. Call me the Golden Girls, you might say.
The Golden Girls. Okay, now, trading cards, are they back as well as again this year?
Oh, absolutely. So every single character you meet on the street and every caroling group has a special, what we like to call like a trading card, like a baseball card. It has their picture on one side. It has their brief biography on the other. And there are 51 cards to collect this season for our 50th season, all completely free. Makes a really fun keepsake for you to take home with you.
Now, this is the most important thing because when people go to Christmas traditions on South Main Street in St. Charles, tell me they should go to the bank first and they should increase their credit limit on their credit card and maybe bring a couple $1,000s with us because the entrance fee is, how much is it cost to come to Christmas traditions again?
Zippity-doo-dah, completely $0, 0 cents, completely free for people to enjoy.
As opposed to some places that cost a lot of money, but that's a whole other story. Jack, I
Absolutely.
appreciate your time. Do you mind if we call you again next week?
That'd be great. Let's go ahead and do it.
Okay, and I understand, and I don't know, matter of fact, your PR people sent me that you had to work me into your schedule this morning because starting at 8 o'clock, you're going to be like a big TV star. Is that right, I hear?
That's right. We're going to be on the big old KMOV Channel 4 for Great Day Live. I'm going to have a weather smackdown with that Kent Earhart.
So if people want to see Jack Frost live in the pixels, you like that, live in the pixels? Get it? You know what I'm saying?
I like that. Well done.
So if you want to see Jack live on TV, turn on Channel 4 after we get off the air. Jack, appreciate it. Hope you have another great. And by the way, how was the last weekend? Was it with the snow? Did that help? Or did it hurt?
It actually helped because people felt like they were walking through a snow globe. We had all the diehard fans last weekend, but seems like Mother Nature and I are not going to be on speaking terms this weekend. It's going to be a little balmy, which is bad for me, but good for visitors. So come on out.
So you mentioned last week was like a snow globe. The only thing better would have been if we had an earthquake. Would that be about right?
There you go. Shake it up a little bit.
Okay, Jack. I'll talk to you later.
Seasons freezings. Bye, Brad.
Bye. I'm telling you, that guy is something. He really is. I know him in real life, believe it or not, and he's an extremely talented gentleman. I mean, and anyway, have you ever met him before?
No, I haven't. Last year, I didn't get a chance to say hi to him.
The running joke is I've been on Main Street. We've been talking to him for like 10 years on the air, doing these little hits with him like for 10 years. And I've been to Christmas traditions, I don't know, maybe a half dozen times. Looking for him, I've never found him. And it's funny, I talk about this all the time. Shelley and I used to talk about this all the time. And people used to say to me, hey, I was at Christmas traditions, and guess who I ran into? Jack Frost. And I'm going like, well, you're better than I am, because I've gone up there on several occasions looking for him. I see all the other characters, but not Jack Frost. They do a really nice job with this. And like you said, would you go last year? Is that what you said?
Yeah, went last December. Yeah, it was a great time. And we pretty much walked around, and then actually, Brad, the snow started coming down really hard, so we hightailed it. And but for families, it's safe. I happen to park in a garage. I park for free in a garage, and you can park in a safe place. You're in a safe environment. It's beautiful.
We should invite Tashara Jones out to Christmas traditions on Main Street in St. Charles and say, hey, Tish, this could be something you guys are doing, but guess why you're not doing it? Because nobody would show up. Can I say that? Or is that bad for me to say?
I think that, there was probably a time where people would go downtown and take a look at, what's the store? There was an old famous bar down there that had Christmas displays, right, Brad?
Well, as a kid, I remember the old famous bar store, which is now Macy's, which is even gone. Did I ever tell you about that I went to the sale when they were actually selling all the fixtures there at Macy's? God, that was...
No, really? How long ago was that?
I don't know. This was probably 7, 8, 9 years ago. It was depressing as hell. Because I remember going to that store as a kid. And not only that, one of the interesting things was I used to beg my mom as a little kid. I was into radio way back when. Can you imagine that? I used to beg my mom because of the fact that Johnny Rabbit used to broadcast live from the Macy's, or back in the day was the famous bar store, almost every single Saturday. And I go, Mom, can we go downtown? No, we're not going downtown. And not only that, but then, and the woman I fell in love with because I loved her voice, I'm going to say this and people are going to go, oh my God, Brad's lost it. Delcia Corlo. Does that name ring a bell?
No, and she preceded Diane Rehm in your heart, right?
No. When the British invasion hit, and the Beatles hit in the the early 60s and through the mid 60s, and the Beatles were hot. KXOK hired this woman, and she was actually from England. I can't remember the story. She was married to like an American executive who worked for one of the big companies here in St. Louis, and she had a wonderful voice and a beautiful English accent. And she would come on the station and she would talk about the British invasion. They're here. Paul Revere. She'd go, the Byrds, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. They're all here on 6:30 KXOK. And she used to do a public affairs talk show and the whole bit. And she was a very attractive woman at the time. And I used to say, Mom, I want to go down and see Johnny Rabbit. I want to go see Delcia Corlo. And she'd never take me. But we did go down on the weekends and walk around because the big tradition was all the store windows, which they usually had the clothing and stuff like that in for you to look at and go inside to buy, were all done like in Christmas displays. And they spent buku bucks, even back in the day, and they had people that worked on these displays for months before they put them in the windows, and it was really sort of cool. But not anymore. You know what they have in the windows now?
Yeah, they have plywood.
Right. That's pretty much it. They have plywood in the windows. How bad is that? Okay. Interesting story. You know who Mark Halperin is, right?
Yeah, he's an author.
Right, and he's also a political analyst. I read this article yesterday, and he's saying that here, let me read part of this. He says, as a result, President Biden appears to have have fallen from the Democratic Party's good graces to the point where some frustrated Democrats are reportedly considering withholding donation to President Biden's future presidential library over pardoning his son. Now, he says, get this. This is Mark Halperin. I love good lines. You'll like this line. He says, and he's talking about the fact that the Democratic, donors who give lots of money to the Democratic public feel they've been sort of scammed by the whole thing that now the number's up to 1.5 billion is what they spent on Kamala Harris's campaign from the day she announced to election day. And there's still millions, tens of millions. Somebody the other day said there's still 150 million in the hole. Can you imagine one of those people that did advertising and stuff like that and you didn't get your money up front? Anyway, he says, you're right. And they're talking about the lack of donations to Biden. He says, I mean, there will be some version, maybe more like a bookmobile than an actual library. He's talking about the presidential library.
A bookmobile.
A bookmobile.
First of all, I hope it's solar powered.
Now,
and I hope he can use one of the 8 charging stations that he created.
Now, I know someone, matter of fact, I know people, but I know someone who used to live in the neighborhood where Barack Obama's library is being built, and it's still not done, being built in Chicago. And do you know the story on this? No, I don't. The people who live in this neighborhood are not happy about this because of the fact that apparently the neighborhood is going through some changes and going through some positive changes. And they came in and they bought, a couple square blocks of the city in Chicago. And they're doing this and they're doing that. And the traffic is increased and construction is causing all sorts of noise and stuff like that. Now, I'm going to throw something out to you, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, first off, here's my question to John Combest. Why do we have 2 questions? Number 1, why do we have presidential libraries? What is that? Explain that to me.
Unless that's a trick question, it's to capture the writings and the documents of every individual president to aid researchers. They're usually located in an area where there's a college. So, for example, LBJ's library, I believe, is in Austin.
Yes.
And so you would capture a president's, in the old timey days before everything was digitized, you would actually be able to go there and research the documents from a president's term.
Okay. Now, here's my next question. Of the last 50 years, which president does not have a library?
Donald Trump.
Yes, it's that. Nobody.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this is we got the Barack Obama library, and we've got the George W. library, and we've got obviously we have the Bill Clinton library and stuff like that. You go back, there's the George, Bush #1 library. Before him, there's obviously one of the most prominent ones that people go to all the time is the Ronald Reagan library out there in California. Why is there no Donald J. Trump library?
Well, because if we have Twitter, as long as we have access to Twitter archive, pretty much everything important Trump has said is on X now.
But don't you find that interesting that he's so out of the box that he could, this story is about the fact that oh my God, Joe Biden may not have enough money from his donors to put together his library. I'm going dude, who cares?
Yeah. Although I can see Trump at some point wanting his own library. Can you imagine the amount of profiteering that would go into a Donald Trump library? Ivanka could run it, or the hot one, Tiffany Trump could run it. Imagine how much money could be made.
Have you heard? I know you listen to a lot of radio as well too. Have you heard the ads for him on radio for his watches and his shoes? Have you heard these?
You've told me about this, but I haven't actually heard them.
Oh my God, they're so funny. He comes on, he says, "This is Donald Trump, your favorite president," and he does his sales pitch. He says, "Yes, I got great watches. These are great watches, and you need one of my Donald J. Trump watches." And then a guy comes on, "That's right, Donald. You can get the new Donald J. Trump watch." And I'm going this is like Ron Popeil doing a Vegematic commercial.
That's a great callback there, Ron Popeil.
Okay, last thing this morning. John, I'm going to ask you, you're the expert, okay? There's a term that keeps getting bandied about, which every time I hear it, I don't really understand the term. I've even looked it up. Okay, you're going to laugh when I ask you this, okay? Can you explain the term gaslighting to me? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So gaslighting it's a psychological tool of manipulation whereby I would say to you, Brad, I can't believe that you never paid me the royalty payment from Q1 this year. Like I just can't believe you gave it. You haven't paid me yet, and you're 9 months late on that payment. And you'd be like, what are you talking about, a royalty payment? And I'd be like, remember that time we sat down at Caldy's and we went through the plan for KSLQ, and you said that at the end of that on March 31st you would write me a check for 40% of the revenue. And you'd be like, John, what are you talking about? And I'd be like, Brad, you know that as you get older, your memory's declining, but I was supposed to get 40% of all of our revenue in Q1, and you haven't paid me yet. And I just want to know when you can cut the check. So gaslighting is a tool by which you continue to insist that something is fact. And the goal of it, Brad, and manipulation is to make the other person have doubts about their own memory. So for you, I'd point to things that are true, like, well, occasionally Brad can't remember somebody's name or Brad can't remember a detail. So I'm preying on the fact that you're self-aware enough to know that you don't remember some things. And I use so much detail. Like, I'm like, Brad, we were at Caldy's and you said 40% on March 31st. Where's my check? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because I hear it used quite a bit, and sometimes the context to me doesn't make sense. But essentially what you're saying is it's sort of a psyops kind of thing where you're essentially going like, it would be like I hate to say this, but if I were talking to President Biden, hey, Joe, remember you got to make me the ambassador to the Netherlands.
Yes.
And you remember,
yes.
well, Brad, I do remember that conversation, and yeah, we'll get you over there in the Netherlands, when it never really happened, right?
And real briefly, too, it's kind of in the term of, it became really popular a few years ago, and it's kind of in the term of narcissism, where people use it in a pop psychology like way, but they don't really, like your version of narcissism could be different than my version, and my version of gaslighting could be different than yours. But in general, it's used to trick people into thinking, into feeling they're crazy and thinking, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm the one that's out of my mind.
But doesn't that sort of explain the whole last 3 years of President Biden with KJP when
Yes.
people would ask her these questions and she would go, well, I can't believe you asked me that, and remember the whole thing about, there was this one guy, I can't remember who it was, I wish I'd go back and find this, when somebody who was very close to Biden, he was on the cabinet member or something like that, and one of the reporters said to him, are you really, you're with the president all the time, is he really as sharp as he used to be? Oh my God, he's the sharpest tool in the drawer. He's keeping us on our toes. He's asking questions left and right, and he's demanding.
He's doing jumping jacks on the desk and one-handed push-ups while he's answering questions.
And now we realize that was all BS, right?
Yes. And people will go back and say, well, if you recall, I was raising some questions about the president's memory. No, you weren't. See, that's gaslighting.
Interesting. Okay, now I thank you so much, John. What you just said earlier, I've heard it a couple different times, and the times I've heard it, it didn't make context the same way, if you know what I'm saying. So in other words,
I do. I know exactly what you mean.
So in other words, you're saying it's sort of a flexible kind of thing where some people interpret it one way and some people interpret it some way or another.
And it's a throwaway insult oftentimes, like, stop gaslighting me. It's like, no, I'm just reminding you what you said. You know?
Okay. I feel much better. This lesson in John Combest, and by the way, John, we haven't done this in a while. If you want John Combest's help, what's the book again, John?
Oh, thanks for teeing that up, Brett. It's called Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. And Brad, I ran a promo on Cyber Monday, and it was, I don't come in and talk about, like patting my own back here but I want to thank people for sharing the message, because a record number of downloads on Monday. I gave the book away for free for folks who had a Kindle, and there will be no more free giveaways. So if you missed it Monday, you missed it. But you can always find a link to my book at johncombest.com.
And John Combest, before he actually published it, he gave myself and Shelley, what is that, like a galley copy? Was that what it was?
Like a proof copy.
Like a proof copy or something like that. And I have to tell you, very good book. If you have ever been harassed, and now it's happening all the time. Geez, I get harassed all the time. I get harassed by members in people in the Chamber of Commerce, but that's a whole nother story. But if you've ever been harassed like that, it's an excellent book, and it gives you, like, what you call it, case studies. Was that what you'd say, essentially?
Yeah. They're kind of mini movies, Brad, of how folks, they're not based on any real life stories, of course, with an excruciating detail, but they show how people can handle some of the levels that you deal with. So thanks for the opportunity to talk about it, Brad.
John, my pleasure. We should do it more often and remind me, because it really is a very good book, and it's almost a must if you are in any kind of business where you have social media exposure, because if you have the world's best product with the world's best customer service and the world's best price, there's going to be some lunkhead who's going to put a post, this product sucks, they didn't give me my money back, and don't buy anything from this company. Am I kidding, right, John?
You're exactly right, Brad. And it's how to handle that without taking it personally and without letting it wreck you.
God, John, you know what? It's 8:04. We ran a little bit over this morning.
Happy early birthday to one of our favorite listeners. Her birthday is Monday, Brad. I'll let you figure out who it is.
I'm trying to think who that is.
One of our favorite people has a birthday Monday, and she gets very mad because she uses her birthday to celebrate her parents rather than celebrating her own birthday. But I say, hey, lady, if you didn't want people to notice it, don't put it on your Twitter profile. You know what I'm saying? And Brad, the adverb is lovingly. I say that lovingly.
John, got to go. Talk to you on Monday.
See you on Monday.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?